Hello. Hopefully by now you've got an opportunity to review the midterm exam and the grade you received on it. I think on a couple things I was sort of surprised, but let's just take a look at some of the key things that I'd like to walk you through. One is our overall grade distribution. Our average score was 76%, and the high score was 97, and the low score was 38, and a standard deviation of 11.66. So we've had a fair amount of variation within performance. The biggest problem that everybody seems to have had when it came to the multiple choice, and in the multiple choice there are 4 questions that really stumped an awful lot of you folks, and these were around cash conversion working capital questions. If the firm's customers indicated they will pay their bills to the company in 60 days instead of 30, the impact will be 2. If Geneseo Coffee Company reduced their inventory, the impact on the inventory conversion period and the working capital cycle would be, given that they have $6 million in sales and $500 in accounts receivable, sales increased by 10%, and accounts receivable by 40, what will be the impact? If Geneseo Coffee Company wanted to speed up the working capital cycle, which of the following would they not do? So these are 4 questions that I think if you go back and look at, many of you got that wrong, and at about 3 to 4 points apiece, this is a significant portion of many folks' grades. But what I want to do is just go through these questions, because what I'd like to go through is these questions were geared to assess your understanding of what the cash conversion cycle, working capital cycle is, and how that affects cash. Now, you had many tools that are available to you: the Geneseo Coffee Company Excel worksheet, Eris International worksheet, and your company's worksheet. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to walk you through these questions using the worksheet. Okay, so what I did is on this side, I actually have my Geneseo Coffee Company, the cash conversion cycle. On this side, I have the question, the potential answers, and you can see who answered correctly. So now let's look at this. If the firm, and some of this is figuring out what does that mean. If the firm's customers indicated they will pay their bills to the company in 60 days instead of 30, what would the impact be? So we're going to come over here and we're going to look. Is it going to affect this line? No, because it's about inventories. Accounts payable, it won't impact accounts payable. So the only thing it will do is affect accounts receivable conversion. Now if you come back, as the cycle is A plus B minus C, and it's say 27 now, we know it's going to go up because it's taking lower. So now we know definitively you can't decrease it. Okay, that's pretty clear when we know that, by an unknown amount, and 6 people didn't even answer. But let's just say, look at this. Right now it's 2798. So if we wanted to double that, which of these numbers would change? So customers are going to take longer, so that would mean, everything else being equal, that the inventory will double. So if I put in double times 2, okay, it's 2798, 5044. So if I literally double that times 2, we'll see that they both went up by the same amount. So you really just needed to go back and look at that. They both went up the same amount. See, we had 2798, 5044. We double the inventory, because if they're taking longer to pay, So now we have 55.97. We have 78.43. And when we take the difference between them, they're the same. Why are they the same? Because inventory conversion plus accounts receivable less working capital equals cash conversion. If the only number you're changing is accounts receivable, then your answer is increase both the accounts receivable cash conversion. So as you can see, this was the first one here that we took a look at was actually of going back and simply, not I gotta say simply, but making that connection. Let's keep going on that theme. The next one, if they reduced their inventory, okay, same question, everything else being equal, we would go back and say they reduced their inventory by, let's mark this down again once more. So we got 57.03, 50.44. All things being equal, these don't change, and we're going to reduce inventory, minus 100,000. So now it's 49, 43, 42.84, and if we take the difference, it's 7.6. So you have tools available to you. You had tools during the midterm, and when we get to the final, you're going to have the tools to be able to answer those questions. Okay? It didn't matter what the amount of the inventory was, but it's working through the cash conversion cycle. Okay? So that takes care of those two. Let's move on. Let's come back to the next question, and that is, given that Geneseo Coffee Company has $6 million in sales and $500 in accounts receivable last year, so we know what it was last year, if sales increased by 10% and accounts receivable by 40,000, what will the impact on the cash conversion cycle be? Okay, let's take a look. So let's go back and just put in, we know that if this, we know this is 500, so we put in 500, and we know it's 6 million. We know that the inventory cash conversion cycle is 432 in year one. Okay, because here's the 500, 500, 600, or 6 million, 6 million, 3042. Now, sales increase by 10%, so sales would be 6600,000. And if receivables went up by 40, that means they were 540, that means that it went up, went down, by 56. And if I were to, there you go. The cash conversion cycle will decrease. It will decrease because receivables went up, but they didn't go up by as much as sales went up. So we have all the information we need to determine that. Payable, okay, would cause the payable to go up, cash to go down. Decrease in accounts receivable mean they're lower, that would produce cash. And the last one is an increase in inventories. Okay, so you want to go through the balance sheet, and that's essentially what I just did here, and say, okay, what happens here? So that's an example of that one. 88%. When we look at the O'Reilly Auto Parts questions, I think majority got a lot of things, and what was missing on a couple of things is, let's start out with free cash flow to the firm, free cash flow. The first thing is, if you notice, it asks for free cash flow to the firm, free cash flow to equity. So the one thing that a number of people did is they only computed two of them and didn't complete the third one. The other was that you didn't show your work, you just had numbers down. So if you just had a number down, I couldn't give you partial credit because I didn't know where things came from. And then there were a couple places where you had brought across incomplete numbers, which wasn't good. And then that was the primary reason we had that. It wasn't a full answers. Let's just go through this a little bit here. Gross working capital, most people got that right. If you didn't get full credit, it was because you did not have anything specific that you cited or explained why it had changed. This is the classical definition here. When we look at financial leverage, it's best to find when you earn more on the firm's assets than what you pay on it. That's the traditional example. These others are yes, but it's not the definition, because you can have a debt to asset ratio of less than 50% and still be using leverage. Yes, these are all a portion of the firm's funding is yes, but it's not the best. And the reason it isn't is because it's about taking and borrowing money and leveraging it up. The key word being leverage. When we look at the cash conversion cycle of O'Reilly, what was the impact on the cash conversion cycle if they reduced their inventory levels at 5? There actually were a couple that were rather unusual that had 2,000 and 3,000 day cash conversion cycle, and in that it was clear to me that you didn't check your work or use a smell test. Sometimes you got to look at these and say what is really going on. In cases of you didn't necessarily address what happened when it was 5%. So that most people got partial credit on that. But if you didn't put your full work in, it's hard to see where your error was and give you that. This one, what are the major products and services? Everybody got that right. The intent of that one was just, can you go to a 10K and find out what a company does? 5-year sales trend, basically if you did not get full credit, what you did is you did not have a sufficient depth explanation of sales. Okay, it wasn't specific. So that's the test. I honestly was sort of, when I saw some of the grades, it was sort of like, how could, there were some straightforward things. So what we may do is reduce the number of points awarded for this and add points either to the final or to the project. But that's a brief review. As you can tell, you did have tools, and that was what I wanted to point out. And you got to read the questions carefully and check your work and give it a smell test. If you have any specific questions, just let me know. Thank you.